Welcome back to Grassroots Media, and welcome to the first ever Bridget Lowe show. We're here at Belk with store manager Bridget Lowe. Thank you for being with me here today. So, Bridget, we'll just jump right in. We know that on the Coach Jason Lowe show that you have been the target, we'll say the bullseye, of quite a bit of Coach Lowe's humor. Tell us a little bit more about, how does that make you feel whenever you see those things, knowing that you're the glue that holds the baseball team together there at North Green?
Yeah, I mean, if you're not the humor of Jason, then you're probably disliked by him. That's
true.
That's just Jason. So, that's what I tell everybody. But it's just funny because you got to witness on Saturday.
I did.
I show up at the game, almost at the end of the game, because my lovely husband forgets to tell his wife that they have changed the tournament location this year. So, it's just fun having a fourth kid, so to speak.
So you get to raise your husband
Yes.
while you're also raising your other children. And, but in all seriousness, though, I don't think he could do it without you. You were mentioning to me off camera a second ago that just last night that you found a nice surprise in your trunk. Tell us about that. Tell us a little bit about that.
So Saturday after the game, Jason rides home with the family and puts his uniform dirty in the back of my car.
Okay.
Yeah, we get to find that last night. So I send a picture and I'm like, do you need this? Yes, by tomorrow. Can you wash it? So his wife was up this morning doing his laundry so that he could have what he needed to coach the boys today for the regional tournament. Regional
Tournament. Well, so that really does. It is funny, and we do like to poke fun at Jason because he is one that you can certainly poke fun at.
And he'll certainly give it back.
He will. He will certainly give it back. And I have seen him. The first interaction I ever had with Jason is he and my dad used to play on the same softball team.
Aww.
And he and Jeff and Dad, they all played together. And Jason was playing out in the outfield, and they would hit the ball back up the middle. And all I remember hearing, and it's a famous saying, I still say it to this day, ball would get hit back up the middle, and you'd hear Jason out in the outfield in his real redneck dialect, and he would say, "Now it's a party! Now it's a party!" And he'd be so mad, he'd be so dang mad, and all Dad used to say is, "That low boy, all he ever wants to do is fight. That's all he ever wants to do." And I remember those days. That was whenever he was in his 19, 20 years old, and how we all are. We're all just kind of, piss and vinegar at that point. He was a lot of fun, but I say all that to say that you mentioned it, the things that you do behind the scenes. Now, we know that there's a lot of things that make it work in high school athletics, but you get to see the behind the scenes. You get to be that shoulder to cry on, per se, that person who hears, if we could just do this, if we could just do that. Talk a little bit about, and we're talking about Coach Lowe today, but talk a little bit about just being a coach's wife, and any coach's wife can relate to this. How much this team and their success on and off the field means to a head coach in high school sports.
Oh, yeah. I know all coaches want to win. I'm pretty sure my husband wants to win more than anybody out there. If anybody wants to win more than him, I'd like to meet them.
Or maybe not want to meet them.
Well, that's true. But, yeah, he pours his heart into it, and it's hard because we have little ones at home who they miss their dad a lot, and the amount of time that they put in, I always tell them, you're paying them to let you coach, because it doesn't even stop, after practices and games. He's coming home, calling his assistant coach, talking about, practice and what they're going to do the next game as far as who's going to pitch and play and all the things, and talking about the other team and where the other team is strong at, and then calling other coaches to figure out, what the other teams are good, what their strong points are, who their good players are. So just last night, he was on the phone for well over an hour and a half talking to his assistant coach and to some other coaches, just trying to prep and get ready, for the regional tournament. And not even just about, preparing for the game, but you also have to worry about the baseball field. So they were talking about the weather and when they would have to call the game and working on the field to get it ready if it does rain, or could they move the field. So it's just all the things, that comes along with it. So it's definitely a 7-day-a-week around the clock job during season. And then, even all coaches are still doing things, scheduling games and tryouts and all that.
So you mentioned here in the region tournament. It is a tournament that North Green on the X's and O's side has a really legitimate shot at making a run to the championship, setting themselves up for another sub-state game. I've been a coach for 10 years. I just quit last year because, my kids are starting to play.
Yes.
And, between grassroots and everything that's going on with it, and then that, if I were to continue coaching, I would never see my kids. So, and I just coached middle school for the last 5 years, so I understand that. But, you see all the time and all the effort that's put into it, and the coaches are in the dugouts, they're on the sidelines or whatever. But you, as a wife and your kids and other family members, a lot of times you're up in the stands or you're over in the bleachers and you're watching and you're listening and you're hearing, not just you in particular. I'm not talking about North Green or anything else, but we hear fans talk, not only about a referee, not only about other players, not only about coaches and things like that. But before you were a coach's wife to now, as a coach's wife, does that give you a perspective shift on being a fan in the stands and what you hear? Because it's not like that has just changed drastically overnight. But has it given you a perspective shift?
Yes, definitely. And of course, always try to stay away from parents most of the time. Not because I don't love them. North Green has an incredible fan base and incredible parents. But, we're all human, and I know I've done it in the past as well. With my nephew playing, and my niece, you always seem to get, it's the easy way out.
It is.
But yes, definitely a different perspective.
Well, and I think the thing is, as fans, I can't speak as necessarily a parent yet. My son plays coach pitch, but as fans and obviously I guess as parents as well, you see things that you really have no control over, and so the first thing you want to do is you think you know better, you know what's best because that's your child that's out there.
Yeah.
And so it's not an indictment on, as you said, we're all human. It's not an indictment on, the thought process, but it is an indictment on our ability to conduct ourselves, because you pointed it out. These head coaches in anywhere in the state, teachers or head coaches, anywhere in the state of Tennessee, can't speak anywhere else because this is where we live, they are paying to be the coach. Mm-hmm. They are not only giving their time, which is money in the business world, they're not only giving their time, but they're giving literally their money to, put gas in the motor if it needs it last minute and they can't go get a card and go get it, put, seed on the field and fertilize the field. And then literally the time that they invest away from their families and stuff. And they're not doing this because they're going to be on ESPN Sports Center or, as Coach Lowe says, there are dozens and dozens of fans, which he has more than a dozen people watch his show. Especially whenever he takes shots at his wife, he gets even more.
Yeah.
So
when his wife shares it.
Well, maybe that says a lot more. Does he even have a social media?
Yeah.
Okay, I guess he does.
He doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't include much on sports on there. So.
Yeah. Well, so when you see him and you hear him talking, like a lot of times what we forget, and this is all walks of life, what we forget is what we're seeing on the field is literally just the tip of the iceberg about what it took to get there. And that's both players and coaches. Mm-hmm. So, from your new perspective and you seeing what Coach Lowe has been through and what he goes through, talk a little bit about just the impact, because it's not just wins and losses. Obviously, it's a team that has a real opportunity to make it to the sub-state this year in baseball. A good baseball team. He's done a good job. The boys have done a good job. But talk about a little bit about the relationships that he's built. And I'd say it's probably the same for any head coach. Yeah. Talk about those relationships.
I was just thinking back to this yesterday because last year, whenever he got his 100th win, I did a special thing and had all the boys that could to send in a video of just like, their favorite moment with Jason and just anything that they wanted to say. And more times than not, almost all boys talked about a hug that he had given them when they had done something, during a game to, either drive them to a win or, just something that Coach Lowe really thought and believed in them and been able to do. And they did it, and he gave them the biggest hug or, was the first to run out and celebrate. And then the other thing was just they almost all called him a friend, and to me, that just is incredible. And, Jason's dad passed away this year, and whenever we were at the funeral home, all the young men that come through to pay their respects to Jason, it makes me emotional. It just means a lot because, you don't see that in a lot of young kids this day anyway. And so, that shows the relationship and the impact that Jason has and had on them. And then you still see, a lot of them around at the games. And then he tells me all the time about them, coming to practices that have the kids that have graduated already. I don't think he's ever going to get rid of Chase. I think he's going to hang around forever, which I love because my kids love him. And I love him too. So, it's incredible to watch. They become our family, you know.
And I think that for a coach, if you're, and honestly, it doesn't matter how much you're getting paid, even all the way up to professional sports where you're getting paid millions. The day that it stops being about the relationships and it starts being about the accolades. Now, you as a coach want to be successful. That's the point.
Absolutely.
You want to win. But the day that that's the focus and not the relation, especially in high school and even in middle school, when that stops being the focus and it becomes more about winning and losing, that's when you lose those relationships. That's whenever a program goes downhill. But I think that a healthy sign or a sign of a healthy program is when not only the former graduates are welcome back, but they feel like they are part of this program. And so, and I see that we are blessed in this county because it's not just Jason. And I say it all the time. Not only do we have extremely good athletes and we have very successful teams across this county, but we have some of the best coaches in the state.
Yes.
And, they're pumping out, not only are they pumping out state champions and region and district and sub-state, champions, but they're also pumping out extremely good human beings. And whether they're going on to college and going to do something, crazy with education, or whether they're going straight to the workforce, they're good people who are well adjusted and who are able to be contributing members of society.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that's all sports should be.
Yeah.
And so, I know that this show kind of started as we had the idea of just to get on here and just, crack on Jason. But, and we definitely need to do that. It's fun to do that from time to time. But at the same time, what we're talking about today in the relationship with Coach Lowe at North Green and your experience as a coach's wife is really just a microcosm of a greater issue in East Tennessee and all across the state, is that coaches are not out there to be paid. That's not why they're doing it.
I promise you.
No. And I think this week is Not Teachers Appreciation Week too. So teachers are not out there to be paid.
No, they're not.
I promise. I mean, they're not. My wife was a teacher for 9 years.
Thought I wanted to be a teacher too, and totally went a different direction.
Yeah, they're not doing it for the pay. They're doing it because they love your student, and they have to deal with so many stressors, and coaches have to deal with so many stressors and external factors that are, contributing forces to a lot of things that they can't control, but they have to lead by example to show their boys or their girls, this is how you respond to this adversity. And so we are blessed. We're blessed to have Coach Lowe in Greene County. I don't know that he could go anywhere else with his hick accent and his mentality. I don't think he could be anywhere other than Greene County.
He's loyal to Greene County. He's not going anywhere.
Well, I'll say one more thing. I remember the first time I ever met Jason was there at softball games. But the first time I ever saw Jason was his picture hanging on the wall in the lobby of West Green High School for setting a record in cross country.
Yeah.
And so many people probably don't realize that old Coach Lowe used to be like a gazelle out there.
That's right, yeah.
But so when I saw that for 4 years, you know, because he graduated a few years before me, and when I saw that, and I was like, man, that guy, you know, tiny little dude, just he's a little cross country guy. And I had really good friends that were cross country runners, and I know how they are, and I know what their personalities are like. And so when Dad says, yeah, I'm playing with these guys, I'm playing with Jeff and Jason Lowe, and I'm like, went to West Green? He said, yeah. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, he ran cross country there. He's like, yeah. So I get out there and I see him out there, and he's like this dainty little rooster, and I'm like, that ain't like no cross country runner I've ever known.
I know, he doesn't fit the...
I was like, he's not just quiet and reserved. He's like, this is MMA guy.
He's loud. Oh, yeah.
Give him a cage.
Yeah, and we have his mini version now, so, you know, it's funny you're talking about Jason, your dad saying that he wanted to fight all the time. Yeah, that's Dansby now. Well, so it's the Low boys for sure.
it's that blood running through their veins. They can't help it. Well, I appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah,
I mentioned to you before we even started that, I mean, I would really like for this to become a theme where we get to talk with not only coaches' wives, but, you know, other people, just assistant coaches and people like that, as we kind of talk about and diving in, because that's the whole point of coaches shows when we started them, is to kind of break down that barrier and let people see who the coaches are as individuals. Because it's literally, like I said, it's iceberg mentality. This is what you see, but it is so much more underneath.
Absolutely.
And, you know, there's more to talk about. There's more that needs to be understood. And I think that's what makes it successful. So thanks for doing this today. I can't wait. Nobody knows this is going to happen.
I know, yeah, it's exciting.
So whenever people are watching this for the first time, it's going to be great. So we'll post this up later today, and you know, hopefully you're a trendsetter.
Well, thank you for coming by.
Well, thanks for taking the time.
Yeah.
This has been the Bridget Lowe Show, and we're here at Belk. So we'll say it's presented by Belk, the Belk outlet here in the Greenville Commons. So thanks for watching, and join us next time here on Grassroots Media.